discussing love and truth, and the only two passages, actually there's a lot of passages on love that keep coming to mind, but there's only one passage that jumps ahead about truth, and that's that John 8, 31 and 32. I think verse 32, if you don't mind pulling it up, and we'll see exactly what it says.
John 8. Said 31 and 32.
I believe so.
Says, then Jesus said to those Jews which believed on him, if you continue in my word, then you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Yeah. That's one. I think there's other passages that kind of focus on that word truth, but that's the one that's just kind of been in my mind a lot over the last couple weeks about the truth.
The one that sticks out to me, I've actually over the past couple days since the last time we got together, I've been going through that identity process to try to understand the mission and the goal of this venture with podcasting. And I've also been thinking a lot about truth just since you mentioned it. And the one scripture that sticks out as I've been thinking, okay, what is it that I'm here to do, talk about? Do I have anything valuable to give? Under the context of truth, what stuck out to me was when Christ said, I think he was talking to his disciples, and he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And as I try to understand what truth or truths it is valuable enough for me to talk about, like that sticks out as the one truth. Like there's so much going on in this world. There's everybody's moral compass has shifted ever so slightly. We're all struggling to figure out which way is up, what's right versus wrong.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, in my opinion, the consistency of Christ. Like, that's where I go to figure out if something is true or not, or what truth is.
Right.
So that's kind of been the one that's just ringing in my head as I think about what truth is.
Man, those are good. I'm going to be taking notes as we talk, because sometimes the ideas are so large and there's a lot of good nuggets of wisdom being dropped. Okay, I'm the way, truth, and the life. That was John 14 and 7, I think.
Yeah, let's pull that up. John chapter 14, starting in verse 6, says, Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. That's a big statement.
It is. Okay, so in one passage, John 8, 31, 32, it says, if you're my students, you'll know my word. No, if you continue in my word, is how it says, then you're my students, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So there's a connection between the word and the truth. He's saying you'll know the word, or if you continue in my word, you will know the truth.
If you continue in my word, you are my disciples, and you'll know the truth.
You'll know, yes.
And the truth will set you free.
So the word can lead to the truth, and the truth leads to freedom. And then in John 14, it was, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So truth has always been such a big concept in my mind, because like you said, there's a lot of cultural, I don't know, upheaval and division on the nature of truth. And one thing that I seem to find myself thinking about, or just thinking about a lot, is when people say anything about my truth. My truth, right? And I understand that we all like live a certain narrative. It's like in my world, or I remember in high school, we used to say in my book. You know what I mean?
Yep.
In my book.
Yeah.
That's another way of saying like in my word, you know,
Yeah.
in my reality, in my book, in my story, in my narrative. And everyone has that. But the realization that my book is not the book of the world, or the book that everyone else adheres to, or the book that even makes the most sense in this situation or in that situation. It's just my book. It's just my experiences. But there are apparently billions of other experiences. So when we talk about truth, what I'm getting at is, sure, Lance may have a truth in his book about certain things, but what that really means is Lance has a lot of bias. That's what that ultimately means, is that Lance can be so narrow-minded that he only thinks he thinks a situation can only be one kind of way, and it's the way that he thinks it is. His word, his truth.
Yeah. and I feel like it's maybe, which Dennis has the same issue, and every time, let me put it like this, I struggle to fight against that, considering my truth, my experience, my book to be to supersede others, right? And I feel like whenever I lose the battle, whenever I'm losing the battle of considering my truth or my book to be more important or elevated above someone else's truth, it's always a pride thing.
Right. How do we know it's a pride thing? Like, how do we get there?
I would say it's a pride thing because, again, we all have a book. We all have an experience. We all have a story. Who's to say that the facts in my story are more true or more factual than someone else's story, someone else's experience? And so I feel like it's pride because it's that age-old idea of me elevating portions of myself or my story or my history above someone else's experience, history, story.
Right.
And to kind of tie it together, why I think this is an issue of pride, I mean, we just read in the scripture, Christ said, He's the way, the truth, and the life. If you continue in His word, then you're His disciple and you'll know the truth. So it's this struggle of, okay, we all have our own experience. We all have an individual story. We all have our individual truth, right? But it's only when we submit our story, our truth, to the word of Christ, who is the example, that we really start to understand what truth even is, right? We all have our own individual truths, but there is a truth, right? And I mean, we don't even have to be speaking on spiritual things in any given situation, there is a truth.
Right.
It might be multiple perspectives,
Right.
but if you can get out of each one of those perspectives, there is an objective truth
Right.
in any situation. And I feel like, with this whole thing called life, and with the issue of pride, me elevating my truth above someone else's, it takes an objective truth such as Christ to kind of humble us all. So nobody ends up thinking, oh, my experience is more valid than the next person's, or the facts that surround my life are more important than the facts that surround someone else's life. We all need the playing field of life to be equal,
Right.
with some objective truth. And I think that's what we all struggle with, especially in today's culture. We're so selfish, and we're like, everything's about me, everything's about in the world. It seems like the world revolves around the idea of I or me, right? For every person. And it's a matter of how do we get out of that
Yep.
and actually start working in cooperation and seeing people as seeing people and their experiences as just as important as our own.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes me think about, well, I don't know which way to go with this at the moment, because my mind is going in several different directions, but I think it'll all come full circle. When you said that there's a lot in the world that's revolving around I and me, man, like
Yeah.
this is why.
Is there a difference between I and me?
Only in how we use the word in the sentence. But if we want to talk metaphysically and spiritually, we start realizing how we've already tapped on the fact that truth can be such a relative, subjective thing, but then we're also saying there is an objective reality of truth also. It's in my mind, I see truth. Well, I've always considered truth to be the the overarching definer of everything that is, or everything that exists. Truth is the overarching definer of everything that exists, which means there's something highly intelligent about truth, that it's a reality. It's not just a concept or an idea. And actually what I just said was slightly incorrect. It's not a reality, it is the reality. That's what makes truth an objective thing, is that it is reality. Reality is truth.
I'm itching for the definition of truth real quick. Is there a way we could pull that up?
Yeah.
Can we get that? I'm curious what Webster has to say about
Word
that.
truth. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's go to. Okay. Truth as a noun, conformity to fact or actuality is number one. Number two, reality, semicolon, actuality. Number three, the reality of a situation. That's actually from the American Heritage Dictionary.
That's interesting. Okay, and so just based on that definition alone, it almost seems as if truth is subjective. And this is why I say that. It says that truth is something that aligns with the facts of reality. Conforming what is that?
Conformity
To fact or actuality.
Yeah.
Conformity to fact or actuality. And it seems like, this is why I say that based on this definition, it seems like truth is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
The human experience is, in my opinion, what defines reality. Our ability to experience something is kind of what makes a fact a fact. In quantum physics, they say that nothing really happens until there's an observer, right? You have to have,
Right.
you know, and
Yep.
it's the observer that kind of, I don't know the way that the scientific way to say it, but it's almost like it's the observer that makes
Or
the reality or
influences.
influences the reality,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And so let's say we have 10 humans all looking at some objective truth. They're gonna have 10 different perspectives.
Right.
That's 10 different realities
Right.
that are based on the conformity to their fact or their actuality, depending on their perspective.
Right.
And so I say that this definition of truth is somewhat lacking because it makes the truth subjective and not objective.
Right. Conformity to fact or actuality. And then the question can be asked, well, whose fact are we talking about?
Whose fact, whose actuality, whose reality are we talking about?
Whose reality? Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is good because words are so important. And the only way, so when I write about lofty ideas like truth, if I'm going to talk about the subjective truth, I keep it a lowercase t. And if I'm going to talk about the objective truth, I put a capital T. You know, it's like, and that's another way of saying there is the reality of truth, capital T, and there is your reality of truth, lowercase t. And as long as you can awaken to the fact that you have a reality of truth and it's a lowercase t, therefore, that's going to better serve you in your life to understand this is just the way I see things. That brings humility into your narrative, into your story, into your word, into your perspective. Because like you said, there can be 10 people in a room who share 10 different perspectives. And the only way they can come to a consensus, because they can, is to talk about it. And then they realize, oh, there's something greater than myself, the I, me thing. There's something greater than my truth. And if 10 people can actually discuss, can actually have that conversation. The problem is there's even the lowercase I, and then there's the large I, right? And that could be, okay, Lance on his own, stuck in his narrative, lowercase I. But when Dennis brings something to the table, it allows Lance the opportunity to, maybe Lance has had a bird's eye view of his view on the world, but when Dennis gives him information, meaning Lance has to be open to letting that information in, suddenly his bird's eye view can grow and he realizes, oh, like I only had this. And the tricky thing is I felt safe with that too. So that's the part where it's difficult to let other people's ideas in because there's safety and security in just my little world. And when people start saying my truth, that's ultimately what they're saying. My little world is all I need. And they may even be saying my little world is all you need too. But that's when we start wars. Like literally, that's how wars That's how human conflict grows into war. Because
Mm-hmm.
my perspective is the only one, and I'm going to push my perspective on you.
Pride.
Pride, that's the ego.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. Hmm.
And so you brought up the safety of being in my world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we look around in culture, we can see, the byproduct of carrying that thought process. Hey, I feel safe in my little world, and because my little world is safe for me, it's also going to be the safest thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do we deal with that? Let me ask the question this way. How is it that people don't understand that that is the epitome of ego and pride, to force what's good for me, what's most beneficial for me, on someone else who might not be anything like me? How do we get to that point?
Let's see. How do we get to the point of realizing that it's an ego issue or that it's a pride issue?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I'm trying to think of a simple answer to that. It seems like per person there are so many ways to finally wake up and realize that it just doesn't work, that it's dysfunctional to think my way of that it's dysfunctional or stressful, let's say, for me to think everywhere I go, I have to convince people of how to see things my way. That's one part of it, right? It's like in any given situation, someone says something and I'm like, no, that's wrong. This is the right way. Like that's just, it becomes I can't be a happy person if I live that way, trying to correct everyone. The person who's trying to correct everyone is a miserable person at the end of the day. They're not happy.
I would agree. And I think that most most people in their right mind would automatically recognize that as a pride issue if we were talking about something else. For instance, we're different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
We wear different size shoes.
Right.
I don't know what size you wear, but let's say I wear a 9.5 and you wear an 11.
Mm-hmm.
It would be asinine for me to say because I wear a 9.5, 9.5 would also be best for you.
Right.
That would be stupid, right?
Right.
And I mean, we could look at a million different things where it would not be okay for me to say because this is right for me, it's also right for you. But for some reason, it doesn't play out the same when we're talking about our story or our truth. It almost seems like, okay, my story, my truth, my objective reality, the way that I consider and compartmentalize the world and see certain things, the perspective I have is also most beneficial for everyone else I encounter. Like for some reason there's a switch in our brain when it comes to that. When if we were talking about anything else, it would be a no-brainer. Like, no, it's what's best for me is not necessarily what's best for you.
Right.
And so I guess the question is, how where did we go wrong in not realizing that this is obviously pride and it's obviously not going to make anybody happy who lives like that?
Right. You know, it seems like a cultural issue to me. And by culture, I guess I'm meaning the whole world at this point. It's not just a United States issue. It's a human dilemma. The ego, pride is the human dilemma. And it's being, I don't know how far to go back into this, but let's just say we're born into ignorance. And not much of our world seems to be helping with that. Like, because when I say ignorance, I'm meaning something that is antithetical to truth, capital T. So we're saying truth exists, the ultimate reality. We're saying the ultimate reality exists. But humans like to create their own truths, lowercase t, which means there is ignorance involved. Because for me to create my own truth means I'm not operating in the ultimate truth, because why would I need to form my own if I was just operating in the real thing? I'm creating a false reality now. Instantly means ignorance, because truth is knowledge, true knowledge, not just knowledge out of a book that a university can teach me. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that is so innate to human nature. It's akin to wisdom, right? Like wisdom. It's not something you learn out of a book. It's something that is experiential and you can feel it. And when it's applied, it always is beneficial. This is wisdom. This is true knowledge. This is true understanding. This is truth. This is truth. We're born into this false reality, the matrix. We're born into this matrix where that self-ignorance. Wow, and I just jumped there quickly. I didn't think it would jump that fast to self-ignorance, but that's ultimately because my truth, I may have to help cultivate this, but I'm just going to say it now. My truth, lowercase t, obviously, is self-ignorance. That's what my truth is about. I'm so unsure about myself, I have to create my own world to feel safe in. That's my truth. That's what my truth is. And I feel safe there, so it is my truth. Very objective, but still my truth. Very small, very limited, has boundaries, fearful because I don't want to let other ideas get in because that like shakes my world. So in defensiveness, I will tell you, in some sort of defensiveness, I'll tell you about my truth. Well, this is my truth.
So to make sure I'm understanding you, are you saying that the idea of having my truth is actually the refusal to acknowledge the truth?
Yes.
And because I'm not
saying that.
And because I'm not living or acknowledging the truth, capital T, as a defense mechanism to feel safe, I create my truth.
That's it. As a defense mechanism. And it's not a right or wrong issue. It's what humans do. It's very organic and natural to create your truth.
It's our way of understanding without having to elevate to the level of understanding the truth.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a shortcut.
Yes, it's a shortcut, and and simultaneously a false security. Self-ignorance. By self-ignorance, okay. So, man, I feel like I'm really jumping all over the place. But when, again, thinking of ultimate reality or truth, capital T, we read that it says the truth will set you free. Free from what? All the underlying insecure issues that exist. The need to create your truth in the first place. Like, it will set you free from that because you can just live in the real world, in the real thing. That's what you're being set free from, is this need. But the need is, how does that need feel when something butts up against it? When there's a challenge, it doesn't feel good. So you can be free of having to deal with the challenge, the stress, the anxiety of trying to maintain your little truth. You can be free of that. You can live freely, which is going to bring a whole new perspective on living life, on being yourself, and what all of that means, Okay, so then when you said that the world revolves around I and me, and I started talking about the small t and the capital T, and that even, okay, so I amness is the only thing that's happening in the human world. I amness, right? So,
What does that mean?
meaning you said the world is revolving around I and me. This is what we do. I have a sense of I. I can't start a sentence in this case without saying I, and neither can anyone else. How are you doing? I. Right? So this is I amness. It's the sense that I am here, the sense that I exist. The thing about it is it's such an interesting, poetic, beautiful play on words, because I am here. I am is here is how that goes. I am here is the same as saying I am is here. It's
So you're saying there is something.
There is I-ness.
There is I amness or I-ness.
Or I-ness, yes.
And it's not necessarily confined in any one being that can say I am or I have.
Right.
But it's something that is actually real. I amness is almost like consciousness, where we all have consciousness.
Yep.
But there is a such thing as consciousness separate from those who possess it.
Say that again.
And that might be weird.
Say that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
There's a such thing as consciousness. And that consciousness is it's separate from those who possess it. And I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
It creates the illusion of that. Yeah. It creates the illusion of the separation.
Right. Maybe it's not separate, but the idea is not specific to any one conscious being. It's
right.
It's bigger than that.
I-ness. We can't get away from it. I-ness is just the sense of being in existence, of being alive. Like you said, consciousness. I am. Am is like the existing part. Am. And then I is an awareness thing. Conscious awareness. Every person is dealing with that, working with the magic of that. We could call it magic, we could say it's sacred, we could say it's divine, because it is what inspires all of planet-wide, universe-wide. It's what is.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, it just reminds me, and I know we've talked about this before, but that is the traditional name of God.
Yep.
Right? When he appeared to Moses on the mountain, and Moses said, "Oh, well, God's telling Moses, go to Pharaoh and tell him this," and he says, "Well, who should I say sent me?"
Right.
And his only response was, "Tell him I am sent you." And so, to add context to this conversation, it's almost like he was saying, "Tell him consciousness sent you," or tell him that this overarching idea of I exist, I'm here, tell him that sent you.
Right.
Which now we look at consciousness, we look at this idea of I am, I exist, as something that is specific to the individual.
Right.
Only.
Yep.
And in Exodus, the Most High said, no, it's not specific to you. That's the essence of who God is.
Right.
So I think that's pretty amazing, honestly.
Spot on. Amazing. Yeah, as you said, I am sent you as another way of saying consciousness or conscious awareness sent you. Now we can't separate conscious awareness from true reality, capital T, truth. We're saying conscious awareness is what allows me to sit here, think, speak, see everything that's happening in this room. This is conscious awareness, and you're having the same experience in your body, in your form, under your name, Dennis, right? But But it's the same, how do we say it? It's the same spiritual faculties being used. It's the same thing. It's I amness. It's conscious awareness. It's the same thing in everyone. So now we get back to why my truth is an issue of self-ignorance. Because if we're saying I am, we're talking about selfhood. I am a self. Mm-hmm. So then I am is related to the self. And if when Moses said, "Who do I say sent me? What is your name?" and that great being that we call God said, "I am that I am," which is almost like to say, it's not almost like to say, it definitely says, you can't just put a name on me. You can't just put a name on me. I am that I am. I am all that I am. And and everything that you're up to is because I exist. Another way of saying because I am, right? I exist. I am. That is the ultimate truth. That is the ultimate reality. Why is it the ultimate truth and reality? Is because every person in the world shares in I amness. We all share in it. And so as soon as I try to put my truth on you, I'm saying I'm ignoring your I amness. But the kicker about that is if I ignore your I amness, I'm immediately ignoring mine. The whole thing crumbles apart.
Open that up a little bit. What do you mean? If I ignore your I amness, mm-hmm. and let's say it's like we were talking about earlier, because I'm trying to force my truth or my experience onto you, mm-hmm. I'm ignoring your I amness. Mm-hmm. That somehow means I'm also ignoring mine. Talk about that.
Okay, because if conscious awareness, aka God, the ultimate reality, sent Moses, and we're saying everyone has conscious awareness, then the way that works is something in all of us sent Moses. Something in all of us is beckoning for that person to come and get those people Israelites out of Egypt. There's so much to this story and to this journey that we don't even have to consciously be aware of the call or of the invitation of ultimate reality, but it's somehow emanating from us, from you and me, from Pharaoh, who was the person enslaving the Israelites in those days. Something even in him is calling Moses forward. Pharaoh's part of the story and the journey too. And he is conscious awareness too. Conscious awareness is sending Moses in every character because that's the ultimate reality. Conscious awareness is the ultimate reality. Okay, that's one way of saying it, which may be hard to kind of jump to, but maybe this is simpler. Conscious awareness has made it so that everything in existence that also has biological form has intelligence also. I say form, and I do this as if you have to have a human body to have intelligence or form, but obviously that's not true. The tree has form, and it has its own type of program or intelligence also. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the tree and I both have conscious awareness. And conscious awareness is just one thing, though. Right? We were saying conscious awareness is just the ability to be aware in our present life. However you want to say that or think of the present life. I can't forget that that's the unifying part. Conscious awareness is the unifying part. So if I tell you that your truth isn't good enough and that you need mine, that's me not seeing you as conscious awareness. I don't see you as conscious awareness. I don't even know how I would define what I would be seeing you as. But the thing is if I lose touch with you as conscious awareness, I've instantly lost touch with me as conscious awareness. Because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I can't be thinking, oh, I'm conscious awareness, the ultimate reality, and not see that you are too. That's still just ego involved. That's still book knowledge. It's not true wisdom. True wisdom can say, I am conscious awareness, therefore every person around me is also. And the same amount of appreciation or grace or forgiveness or the best things that I would desire to experience, I can see that everyone else is desiring those same really good experiences too. No matter what their behavior shows me, because they might show me some horrible things, but they are conscious awareness too. They're really after security, which is why they're creating their it's why they're creating their my truth or their narrative. They want to feel safe and secure, feel connected, and that they belong somewhere. That's why every human is creating this. I know that because I've done it too. So conscious awareness begins to be synonymous with love. Is where this is headed, because we said this talk was about truth and love, and the two things are connected, nearly synonymous. Like truth and love, I would say they're synonymous. The ultimate reality then would have to be love, is another way of saying it.
Okay, I think I'm following you. And so what you're saying is conscious awareness is something that we all possess, and not just humans, but other forms as well.
Other forms of life, yep.
And
to be alive is to possess and therefore be conscious awareness.
Conscious aware, right. And so you're saying that my inability to recognize others as consciously aware beings and give them their rights, or just give them what they deserve as consciously aware beings,
right.
Which were the things you listed. They want to feel secure. They want to,
yep.
Maybe we'll just say Maslow's, for lack of a better
yep.
encompassing phrase.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, yep.
Right. And so to recognize another being as a consciously aware being, or to not recognize another being as a consciously aware being and try to force something onto them, you're saying that act is to disconnect myself from being consciously aware.
Yes, from being consciously aware.
Consciously aware.
Exactly.
Well, I'm still conscious.
You're conscious and you're aware.
And I'm aware.
But you're not
necessarily
consciously aware of the ultimate truth.
Of the ultimate truth. Okay.
Or true reality, which we're saying is also related to love, or the connection. The connection.
That's another thing. So we've been talking a lot about truth. We've looked at a definition of truth. We've established that there's a capital truth, the truth, and that we all establish our own individual lowercase truths. And somewhere in there, that is the process of becoming less consciously aware anytime we walk away from capital truth and establish our own lowercase truth. And then you said that truth and love are somehow synonymous. Somehow love is the idea that I am living in this capital T conscious truth, and my actions somehow line up with that. So talk a little bit about love, and A, what it is, and then B, how is that synonymous with truth?
Okay, what is love? To just make it simple, because I do have a really long definition of love that you can find on the website, but I would just say love is the connection.
And just real quick, the website, thvtv.com?
THV-TV.
THV-TV.com.
Okay. Which is the same as lancehoward.net.
Okay.
So that's easier for some people. But I would say love is the connection. It's not just the connection, but I know I am being love. I'm actively being love when I am aware of the connection. Because when I'm aware of the connection, then I'm also speaking and acting accordingly. Which is, again, the example was if I try to place my truth upon you, thinking that you don't know something or that you're not as smart, I'm not respecting the connection. I'm severing that tie. I'm saying, no, you don't have it right. So there's a better way, and I'll show you, I'll teach you. There's a certain negative attitude about that where I'm not seeing the other person's I amness.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not seeing their I amness, again, like the connection means unity is what it means, you know. I amness is the only thing that's happening. So as soon as I am incapable of seeing another person's I amness, I've just severed the connection. In my mind, it's severed. Of course, it still exists. I can't actually sever it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the mental part starts to play a role in how we express ourselves and how we're going to experience life. Love is the connection, which is about unity. So that was the first part of the question, I think. What was the second
love?
part?
And how is that synonymous with truth?
How is it synonymous with truth?
And I think you just answered it by saying that love is the connection to truth. And did I paraphrase that accurately?
I think so. Love is the connection, which is like saying unity. Because we can still think of a connection and think, oh, but that means this thing that's connected to this thing, they're still two separate things. And what I am hoping to communicate is that love is the connection that is showing that all these different things are really one thing, conscious awareness. All these billions of people are really one thing, conscious awareness. That's the ultimate truth. When I realize conscious awareness is the only thing that's really happening here, and if we wanted to translate it into a different language, we could say God is the only thing that's happening here. If I can awaken to that fact, my life can change overnight. My family can change overnight. It starts with me having the awakening.
Conscious awareness is the only thing that's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And love is my realization of that fact and the action that shows that I understand that. Is that accurately what's being said?
You could say love is your realization, but perhaps more accurately, love is what allows us to realize it in the first place. The fact that we can even sit down and have the conversation is love, is God, is conscious awareness, is what we're saying. It is the reality. Love is the reality.
Okay.
The problem that we're saying about my truth is that I've created a different reality. And I haven't awakened or dialed into the ultimate truth, which is love. Love is the ultimate truth. and we have 8 billion receivers and transmitters on the planet called humans, receiving and transmitting different types of truths or beliefs about what's happening here. We all just need to tune into the one thing, and that'll change everything quick.
So first, I want to do two things. I want to know what the Webster definition of love is, and I want to see if we can, because this is a hard concept for me to wrap my brain around. This idea that there's only one thing, which is love, and there's 8 billion transmitters called humans of love, and if we can all figure out how to just tune into this one thing,
right,
the world will be a better place. Things would change. And so let's break this down a little bit and see if we can't from the ground up. Do you have a definition of love?
Love, it says, this is from the American Heritage Dictionary, a strong feeling of affection and concern toward another person, as that arising from kinship or close friendship. Or number 2, a strong feeling of affection and concern for another person accompanied by sexual attraction. And 3, a feeling of devotion or adoration toward God.
Okay, so I heard there's 3 definitions, and I think all of them are feeling based.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Each one starts with a feeling or a strong feeling.
Okay. Now I have a different definition of love, and this comes from the scriptures. This is 1 Corinthians 13, and I'll start with, actually I'm just going to read it from the top to get the context.
Okay.
I'll go verse 1 through verse 8. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go 4 to 8.
Okay.
It says, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love vaunteth not itself. It is not puffed up. Love does not behave unseemingly. It seeks not its own way. Love is not easily provoked. It thinks no evil. It does not rejoice in iniquity, but it rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. So that's a strikingly different definition than all 3 of the ones you read.
Right.
Which all 3 of the ones you read are feeling based. And it seems like what 1 Corinthians is saying is that love has nothing to do with feelings, but
Right.
it's something entirely different.
Right. Yeah.
And so which one of these definitions fits this idea that love is the thing and somehow synonymous with truth? Which one of these definitions do you subscribe to?
Definitely the one out of the ancient scripture. What I'm hearing, as soon as you started reading, you started at verse 4, right?
Yes, verse 4.
Can you just start the first sentence of that one, or just read the first sentence?
Love suffers long.
Okay. As soon as I hear love suffers long, now, of course, I think you're reading from, it's either an NIV or
no, this is actually the King James,
King James.
and I changed the wording just to make it understandable, so it's not Old English. In the King James, the word, it's suffereth.
Suffereth, yeah. So, and by suffers long, our English word today for suffer is not what the King James suffer is trying to say. You know, like suffering to us means sorrow and that sort of thing. But I think this word for suffer in the ancient from Greek, it was translated into what we might call ancient English now. Suffereth is like saying love is patient. Like it
endures.
It endures. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you read that, I'm thinking love is a being. It is patient. You said love seeks, love thinks, love rejoices, love believes. These are all the things that beings do.
It does personify love.
It personifies love, which makes sense because another one of the ancient scriptures says God is love. Right? Mm-hmm. So it all connects. And we're saying God is conscious awareness. And we made the whole connection, the ultimate truth, conscious awareness, love. Like it's the same thing. God or conscious awareness is the ultimate truth or the ultimate reality. And it is life-giving. What could be more loving than that? And so that's how we get to love on the quick, right?
Yeah.
Like it gives life.
Yeah.
Conscious awareness gives life. God gives life. What could be more loving than that? There's nothing more loving than saying, I'm going to share myself. Ooh, I got to change that sentence actually. If I was to finish that sentence, I was going to say, I'm going to share myself with all of you. And that's okay. But the problem is we can then begin to see ourselves again separate from conscious awareness. What's really happening, and this is why the my truth thing is off base. What's really happening is conscious awareness is living in 8 billion human beings. The one thing is living as 8 billion human beings.
I think you might need to say that again. The one thing.
The one thing, conscious awareness is living in or through or as 8 billion human beings. Not to mention plants, animals, everything else that is living. This is conscious awareness we're talking about. So, there's the religious notion on some of these things. Bro, okay, let me just say it. The religious notion still gives us a my truth kind of thing, but is failing to give us the broader scale about I amness, which is, okay, so for example, when the very, very ancient book of Genesis says that humans are created in the image of God, that's what we were just talking about with a whole new kind of updated language by saying, conscious awareness is living in, through, and as all the humans. That's what it means to be the image of God, right? Okay. But we can try to squeeze the image of God into something much smaller than that.
2 arms, 2 legs, a head, a mouth.
Right.
Yeah. But it's really saying, no, we are living as conscious awareness.
You are living
the image.
You are the image, the exact image of conscious awareness. It's not about a picture or a mirror or an image. It's not that. But it's close to that too. It's like, well, you are the resemblance, meaning you have the capacity, and it's right here. It's your conscious awareness. So the reason why it's a resemblance or an image is that you're still stuck here. That's the only reason why it's a resemblance or an image. If you will broaden, it'll stop being just a resemblance and an image, and you'll start being the one.
Now there's going to be a lot of spiritual folk they're going to have a problem with that one. So you telling me I could be the one here?
Yes. Shall we dig into that?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Matthew chapter 5 and 48.
Let's go there so they don't think we're lying. Matthew 5 and 48. So Matthew chapter 5 verse 48.
It
Hold
might be
on.
47 and 48.
I'm
not
going to
sure.
read 47 and 48.
Okay.
All right, here it goes. It says, Matthew chapter 5 and verse 47, and if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans do so? But you, therefore, be perfect, as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
Okay. What does 46 say?
It uses that love word. So Matthew chapter 5 and verse 46 through 48, it says, for if you love them which love you, what reward do you have?
Okay.
Do not even the publicans or the politicians do the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the publicans do so? But be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
There it is.
So you're saying that we can be perfect now, huh?
Yes, if we understand that perfection is about love. That's the connection, right? It started with that. It's like, this is all about love. It's just about love. It's not perfection, again, that you've squeezed into your my truth cultural idea of perfection. Because what is that? We don't even really know what it is, but it stresses us out to no end. That's for sure, trying to be perfect. But if we would just be love, here's the thing. What I'm saying, if I said if we would just be love, is really if we would just awaken to love as the thing that we actually already are, because we're saying God is love, God is conscious awareness, we are also conscious awareness, we are love, therefore, which is why we have a natural affinity to want to belong and be connected and to feel supported and to give support, love and be loved. All of that proves that love is our essence. And the ancient scriptures clearly saying you can be just like your Father, aka you can be just like the true reality of love. Because it's already your essence. It's already who and what you are. You've just been so stuck in this world's matrix with these smaller truths that you haven't been able to connect to it. Not to mention you were educated to think a certain way about the world and all this other stuff that's distracted you from just knowing who you truly are, from this small idea to the reality.
Wow.
That's only one. I'm pretty sure Luke 6 and 40 hints at the same thing in a slightly different way. First John is going to hint at it also. The book of James is going to hint at it. And yeah.
Luke 6 and 40.
Yes, I believe it's 6 and 40.
And we're talking about this idea that if we would just awaken to the fact that we are love,
right,
then we could be perfect based on the definition of conscious awareness. The conscious awareness being perfect is this idea that we need to awaken to love and live in it. Did I say that right?
I think so. The struggle is with our language, right? It's there's we're just awakening to who we truly are. Instead of thinking love is something different from us, or that perfection is something different from us. The tricky thing is we live in a world that says, you are what you do, or your actions show who you are. And that is false. Your actions and what you do not show who you are. They may show some of your confusion, but that's that. They may show your self-ignorance, but they don't show who you are. Who you are is what we're reading. is what we're talking about. And there's a difference. Again, there's the matrix, which makes us look at ourselves a certain way, and then there's the truth. The truth is conscious awareness is the only thing that is actually happening. But we're just having to wake up to it because we come into this matrix. We're born self-ignorant, unsure of who we are. And then no one else even knows how to tell us any of this. So we let's just say we learn these habits and they're ingrained for decades. So this conversation that might be so new for someone, and you might really be fighting against a lot of things that are being said here, but that's only natural when you've been ingrained into a certain way of thinking about the world and yourself for so long, that even if I were to say, here's another way to look at truth. Here's another way. We have a sun and a moon, and they do their dance in the sky every day, nonstop. We see duplicity there, right? Daytime and nighttime. Yin and yang. Male and female.
Okay.
Feminine and masculine. Ideas that are really at the front of our culture right now in talks of sexual identity. It's like, look, life is showing you as clear as day. You got night and day. You've got yin and yang. Like, we can't deny that there's something about this duplicity that makes the world alive. But now let's talk about ultimate truth. The sun and moon, all of the life that is happening on our planet is still contained under one sky. One sky. Now, we see the sun and the moon and all the stars, all this multiplicity, billions and billions, trillions, under one sky. That's just a simple way to try to put it together. What it's like being a human trying to connect to the ultimate truth is like that. Like, you're looking at all the variety in the sky, but are you realizing that it is just one sky? Or like saying there's like, there's still millions of unknown organisms in the ocean, they say, but it's still just one ocean.
So you're saying, to the same degree that there's so many billions of stars in the sky, but only one sky, and to the same degree that there's so many billions of organisms in the ocean, but it's only one ocean, you're also saying we got 7 billion consciously aware beings on this earth, but there's only one conscious awareness.
That's it.
And through all of our education and schooling and advancement, we have somehow gotten away from that truth.
Right.
That 7 billion people on Earth.
Right.
Only one conscious awareness.
Right. Only one life is a really simple way to say it. It's just life. It's life. It's a simple thing to respect it. To respect that, if we just have more conversations like this, it seems so natural and so like,
I think you need to say that
indigenous, it's like, this is ancient knowledge that we've become too smart for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But really, it's just more self-ignorance. Our smartness is increased self-ignorance. We don't know who we are.
It's just life.
It's just life.
And if we can respect life.
You've got it. I've got it. Every person walking down the street has it.
And so, well, I agree with that. I do agree.
That is love, right?
Oh,
back to the connection.
Life, yeah.
Respecting life and seeing it. This is love. This is the ultimate truth. The reality is love. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's it's something that I'm trying to wrap my head around.
It's a big wrapping. It's like
yeah.
You really have to like.
My head's not that big, I don't think. But that is a big wrapping. Dang, if we can just respect life That is the essence of love.
Back to the scripture. In him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. John 3, somewhere in John 3. Gosh, I can't tell you where that is. It could be John 1,
John
actually.
1, I think. Yeah, I think,
John
is
1.
it John? Yeah, It is John.
Because remember how we said the word and the truth?
Mm-hmm.
That is in John 1. In the beginning was the word, or the ultimate truth.
Let's read that. John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God.
Yes.
All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life.
There it is.
And the life was the light of men.
There it is.
Wow.
Okay, can we read that again? And then I'm going to interject on some of the words a little bit as we go through. Is that just verse 1 or verse 1 through?
That's verse 1 through 5.
Okay.
1 through 4, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's try that again.
Okay, John chapter 1:1. In the beginning was the Word.
Okay, or the ultimate truth, or the capital T, reality, capital R reality. In the beginning was the Word, the ultimate truth and reality, let's say.
And the Word was with God.
The Word was with God. Now, in Greek and in Hebrew, when we have a with, it can also be as or to be. So to say it was with God is to say as God, or it can even be to the right of God. Like it's saying that they
are connected.
It's saying they're connected. Yes. Okay. Oh, and also we already know God is I amness, conscious awareness. All of this is in the verse, but we don't see it in English.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word, and that Word is the reality or the truth. And the Word was with God, and that could mean the Word was the truth, the reality was connected to God in some way.
And as God. Because God is that truth.
And the next thing it says, and the Word was God.
And the Word was God. There it is.
So it's
the truth
saying that
is God.
Yeah.
The ultimate reality is God.
The ultimate reality, the ultimate truth is from the beginning, and that is God.
And we said, God told Moses, I am. So what was the last part of the sentence again? Is God.
And the Word was God.
And the Word was, which is another way of saying is, I am.
I am. So the
I-amness.
Ultimate reality, the ultimate truth is
the great I am.
I-amness.
Yes.
The ultimate reality, the ultimate truth is the ultimate conscious awareness.
Yes. Which John later wrote in his letter, smaller letter. He said, God is love. I amness is love. The ultimate truth is love. The words are so poetic, and the words are poetic. Just, yeah. You can find a lot of these retranslated by me on the website again, right? And in English, we don't think in these ways. But that's why you need translators who do think in these ways. It's saying, look, I can't just look at the word God and see that it's theos in Greek and think I know all I need to know about the word because I went to a dictionary and it says theos. It's not that simple. I have to connect all the contextual information possible about the word God, which takes me all the way back to Genesis 1. And if I'm unwilling to do that, I'm not fit to do the translating. Not only do I have to go all the way back to Genesis 1 to include everything about this word God, I also have to bridge the gap. And by bridging the gap, I mean, how do I bridge it from the conversation between Moses and God in 2022. That's the gap that I must bridge. Because I'm not just going to say, oh, the ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew defines it as X, Y, Z. That's not enough, because the way the ancients saw that word, what it meant to them was something that had a reality of its own in their time.
It meant something to them.
It meant something very unique to them that we don't have today, without someone bringing all of it to a language that we understand. Which is why, let's just say you and I today are translating the word God as conscious awareness, as something that in 2022 people go, oh, let me sit back, and now I'm beginning to fathom how large the idea of God is. But if we had just said God and left it at that, you would never get to the sitting back part.
Yeah, you're going to think it's some guy in the sky that might or might not be real. But now that we actually have something tangible, we know what consciousness is.
We know it.
We know what awareness is.
And how do we even know it? That's a funny thing, right?
Yeah.
We know it because it's so inherent to us and our existence. No one even has to tell us what that is. We're just like, oh yeah, as soon as I move my eyes some kind of way, I know what conscious awareness is. How does that work?
We know more what conscious awareness is than we do this age-old 3-letter word, God.
Exactly. Because that word has a lot of baggage. A lot of baggage. And I'm not trying to disrespect some things about the image that we hold of God. For example, in the book of Daniel, Daniel says, I saw God, or the Son of Man, seated on a throne, and he seems to describe something in a human form, right? I don't want to get too far off track, but there's a reason that conscious awareness allows us to see an image of it as if it looks like our physical being. There's even something loving about that.
Dude, that's a big thought and idea that I don't know that I've ever considered. And
Right.
Just let me make sure that I understand you appropriately. What you're saying is, for lack of a better phrase, there is a difference. Not necessarily separate, but there is a difference between me as a conscious awareness being and conscious awareness itself. But that difference, the way that this whole thing is set up, conscious awareness, God in his lovingness allows me to perceive him in human form.
Yes.
As an act of love, because I couldn't comprehend conscious awareness outside of human form. Like,
Right.
how can I fathom that? And so it's an act of love for me to see conscious awareness, the conscious awareness,
Yes.
in a form that's
Yes.
palatable.
Yes. That is so
Wow.
loving, because now self-love becomes a reality. It becomes something I can grasp onto if I realize, okay, if I realize conscious awareness can take human form, obviously, enough said. And conscious awareness is love. I can make that connection to myself and every other person as well. I'm not saying it has to be that way. I'm not saying we need the physical representation of conscious awareness as a human or something similar to a human. But
I think we do. And this is mind-blowing to me. I've contemplated these topics for a while, but follow me. And you said, this is why I feel like we do need an example in human form of conscious awareness. It seems like that's exactly what Christ was, right?
Yes.
And most people,
in more ways than we understand.
so
That
many
is the
more
truth.
ways than we understand. And
Yeah.
now I'm starting to understand this, right? I've been told all my life that Christ is God in the flesh. He was fully God, but fully man. And it's like,
How does that work?
how does that work? How does that work?
Well,
Right? But then when you, and this is my point, when you look at why Christ came, it seems like at the root of it all, it was specifically that. Because we as consciously aware beings needed an example, needed something tangible that we could aspire to in order to make this real.
right.
I mean, there's other reasons as well, right? The restoration of, which, dude, I'm starting to think of all of this
All
in a
the
completely
things.
different light. But, Christ died for our sins. It restored the relationship of, maybe I'll say it like this. We needed an example of the conscious awareness in the flesh so that we could understand that there is the conscious awareness, there is the reality, there is the human experience.
Right.
And this is what it looks like on some level.
Yeah. It's a trip. It's not easy to break all of that down, but it especially if we go as fast as I think we're going. But yeah, it is a trip. Okay, so what about then? Did we even finish that verse?
We did not. We finished the verse. We got through
Okay.
verse 1.
Okay.
So in the beginning was the Word, which we established was the reality or the truth, excuse me.
Right.
And the Word was with God, living as God, somehow connected God. And the Word was God. The same.
Conscious awareness or I amness. The word was conscious awareness or I amness.
The Word
Was
was
and is
conscious awareness.
and will be, which happens in some of the English translations. It says the one who was, is, and will be, especially in the book of Revelation, right? So that even lets us know, like, anyway, short story, yeah.
Oof. Okay, verse 2. The same, which we're talking about the Word,
The
or
same.
the reality,
The word,
or
the
the
reality,
truth.
the truth, the I amness, the conscious awareness, the same.
The same was in the beginning with God,
Or as God.
or as God.
With, as, by, next to, all of that is contained in this one Greek word, which I believe is ek. Ek.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it says, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made.
All things were made by love, the ultimate reality, the one truth, conscious awareness, I amness. And nothing was made without that,
Nothing was made without that.
without it. So when people say God doesn't seem very loving because there's a lot of suffering in the world, they don't get it. Suffering is not because of God, the ultimate truth, the one reality, love, I amness, conscious awareness. Suffering is because of our self-ignorance, and we're still holding to these little my truths. We are the ones causing the suffering. But if we will awaken to reality, we will stop acting those ways. It's just up to us. The issue of sin, which is another word for mistakenness or erroneousness, meaning errors or trespasses, right? Sin, like it's another word like God. 3 letters that has so much baggage, and we don't really step back and go, okay, sins. Self-ignorant people act out. That is sin. And specifically in Greek, it points to missing the mark. The mark is nothing other than the truth. I'm saying they're synonymous. Okay, so if you're missing the mark, you're missing the truth. You're missing the love. You're missing the fact of conscious awareness. You're missing the fact of I amness. This is sin. And it's an archery term, sin, right? The bullseye is where you're trying to aim, but you're all out here in the other parts of the field, so to speak. Yeah.
And so it says that all things were made by him, conscious awareness, and without him, nothing that was made was made. So you're saying it even takes conscious awareness to make sin. It takes a bullseye.
I wasn't going there, but it is true.
Yeah. Well, because
It is true.
Another argument that I've heard people say is, okay, if God is all powerful and great and all that, why is there sin?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sin
Why
is
does he
because
just-
I'm taking the power of conscious awareness and I'm creating it.
Ooh.
That's exactly what it is. I have the power of conscious awareness. I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, speaking the way I'm speaking, acting the way I'm acting, and I'm at full choice in the matter. No one's forcing me to think, feel, and act. So everything that goes wrong.
And I think there's scriptural basis for that too. In Genesis, it talks about in the story of Adam and Eve how sin came into the world through the
Right.
actions of Adam and Eve, and how it was their inability to hit the mark
Yep.
that created this whole idea of it being possible to not hit the mark.
Right. Yeah, that's a trip. But it definitely lands on, it fits with what we're saying. That for a moment, the serpent, another word for the ego, came in and suggested that, oh, you're not good enough. So instantly that suggestion made Eve's mind go from here to this. Suddenly she's stuck in a false reality going, oh, the great I am is keeping something from me. So, and that's sin immediately. It's not even about taking the next step and
Acting on it.
acting on it.
It's the matter of perception. Her perception
Yes.
has already missed the
That
mark.
is the power of conscious awareness.
Oof.
That's it. Which is why, so we're saying the thought is all that matters, not even the actions, right?
Christ had a lot to say about that.
That's where I was going.
Yeah,
when he was like, look, you've heard it's been said, don't murder, but even if you hate, that's just a thought and an emotion.
You've already
You've
missed
already
the mark.
done it. You've already missed the mark. Yeah. The mark is truth and love. You're out of truth and you're out of love at that point. That's all sin is about. It's that simple. Whatever religious baggage we've tied to that word is, I can't even explain what that is.
It's definitely not helping.
Right. Yeah, it's not helping.
I feel like if I take my own personal errors and the sin that I've experienced in my life, had I known that it starts up here and it's simply as easy, like changing or not sinning, not missing the mark, is a matter of where my perception is, and is my perception lining up with the truth and love. I don't know that I would have experienced certain times where I missed the mark.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot simpler than it's ever seemed in this moment.
Yep. Because I am an individual hub of the only great I. So however I'm seeing this, I've instantly created a false reality of that, but that's the default until I get out of that way of thinking. And all I have to do is change my thinking. All I have to do is change the way I'm thinking and perceiving, which is another way of saying believing, which that can open up a whole bunch of things too. as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Or whatsoever you believe is possible for you. All things are possible for those who believe.
How about this one? If you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, that Christ is the Son and raised from the dead, then you'll be saved.
Yep. Just a matter of thinking and believing changes everything.
This definitely changes my perspective on a life of being. I grew up in the church, taught Christian principles. I've never heard it even alluded to like this. God was always this being that was completely separate of myself, and I had to do certain things.
Own up or measure up.
Yeah, well,
Check
there
off
had
the
to be
box.
actions, or
Right.
there had to be things that I had to do to even get a glimpse or an experience of this great being. Like, that was kind of the way it was always portrayed. And this is almost flipping it on its axis. Like, this great being is a part of me.
It's part of
it
is part of you.
Yeah. And the only thing that I have to do is line my perspective up with that fact, and a bunch of things will change.
That truth, that ultimate reality.
Truth, yeah.
Yep. That's all it takes. That is all it takes.
But not having my perspective in the alignment with the fact or the truth that the conscious awareness is a part of me, Dennis, is in essence sin. It's missing the mark.
It is. And that's what the ego is part of the human experience. We're learning to get ego under control. We're learning to not believe the ideas the serpent suggests to us. That's another part of this journey, you know. It's like there is a slight battle going on, and but the war is just right here. It's not between people. We'll keep thinking it's that, but that's a part of the false reality. That's a part of the matrix, thinking that we're separate and there's an issue here, when really the issue is me. If I get right with me, it doesn't even matter what you think or believe anymore, because I'm not tied to it. I'm not attached to it. I'm not upset by it. I'm not insecure over it, you know?
Right.
Because I'm living in the truth. And when you're in truth, there's no dissonance. There's no problems. You may notice that people are acting in certain ways or whatever, but you understand that you don't have to be tied up by, or bound by someone else's actions and decisions.
That's their false reality.
That's their false reality. It's a trip because it affects relationships, romance, marriage. It affects business. It affects a lot of things for the better. And we're probably gonna have to stop right here, but
Man.
part 2.
Yeah.
Because I think we're gonna finish this verse and keep letting it open up, because that there will be questions about, but what about, if you do have to believe in your heart that he died and was raised, and so how does that fit into conscious awareness and the unity piece? And yeah.
So just where can anyone get in touch with you if they have questions, or if they have thoughts, or how can they get in touch with you? How can they interact with what we're doing here?
LanceHoward.net is the best way. It's going to have all the social media links and email address. And if you want to make an appointment, all of that stuff is available.
Perfect.
On the website.
Well, man, thanks for the conversation.
Thank
I'm
you,
looking
bro.
forward to next time.
Yeah.
All right.